All right, well, cool. Welcome back.
Right?
Welcome to the Firm Foundation podcast. And I have John Nichols on, my good buddy at the office. Um, Absolute legend, played football at CSU. Um, Want to share a little bit about you and your journey?
Yeah, I'll give a quick background. Um, John Nichols, obviously with Coldwell Banker Realty, been licensed going on 3 years now. As far as a real estate background, my family has been buying rental properties since probably middle school age, so we got a good amount of those lined up. So been part of that process, rehabs, things like that. Um, just really rocking along. As Jacob said, played football at CSU. What a lot of people may not know, at the time, my head coach was Sonny Lubick. Had the privilege, even though we got stomped on, had the privilege of playing with or against USC's national championship team. So the Reggie Bush, Lindell White, Matt Leinart lineup. Played against Big Ben. If you're a Steelers fan, which
You
I
you
can't find a
sacked
Steelers.
you sacked Big Ben a few times, didn't you?
I wish. I think that day he ran for about 200 on us. He ran for more than he
Oh,
threw, unfortunately. Um, let's see, played against Deshaun Jackson at one point when he was at Cal, which was also Marshawn Lynch and who was the quarterback? Aaron Rodgers, if I recall correctly. So
during that
pretty
time, I
good
think
lineup.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We
They
got we
actually
got beat
they
by
they just
some
had the privilege of playing you. That's what it
we got beat
was.
by some teams that we probably deserved to get beat by, but we also beat the Buffs a handful of times. And back then we were making
Yes.
it to bowl games. So
Nice.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Um, okay, cool. Well, we're gonna jump into a little bit like just some common questions you and I had talked about that people have when looking at, the market and moving into Denver. Um, so do we want to dive down that hole?
Well, first I got a question for you. So why don't you tell the people something about you that they may not know?
Something about me that they may not know. Uh, well,
Hot
before
spot.
this, yeah, before this, my previous job was with the Air Force Academy. I was contracted out there and I was a travel logistics coordinator. So basically, you took their 26 teams that they had, and I was responsible for 13 of those. And I did all the travel arrangements for those teams, got them from point A to point B. Super cool gig. And I tell you what, like driving onto the Air Force Academy every day and having that as your office, it's pretty sweet. Like it was a privilege for sure.
Nice, nice. So when you were doing the travel, who did you book the travel through? Was it by chance like global business travel, like
No, so
American
it was it
Express
was
or
called Anthony Travel. Yep, and they
okay,
actually
okay.
they lead they're the leading company that does all Division One collegiate travel. So they do it for gosh, 80 plus teams that I
Okay.
can
Yep.
recall. SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, Mountain West. Um, so a very prestigious company. And then Air
Yep.
Force contracted them out a few years ago. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, my time at Amex, that was one of my things I was trying to get them to crack through on was getting the cards into the NCAA with schools because I knew how much they travel, right? So
Did
that
you
was
have
like,
to, did you do that? Like, would you target the schools directly, or would you target companies like Anthony and
the
other
schools
other travel
directly
companies?
because the schools directly because in that setup, Anthony's would have been a competitor to American Express Global Business Travel, right? So
Oh,
we would
okay.
use Global Business Travel with corporations, and then they would book their employees' flights and hotels and stuff through our Global Business Travel portal. So in that scenario, there's no need for Anthony's.
Did you guys do a lot of collegiate travel?
No, not American Express. As far as like,
Not
for
with,
example, Colorado State holding a card, you know what I mean?
yeah,
They really didn't, but it's an opportunity for sure.
nice. That's cool. I
So,
didn't know that.
um, yep, yep. So yeah, so let's jump into this market situation. So, obviously, we've been talking about it a good amount, and it's just really trying to provide information for um, possible buyers, possible sellers, people that are interested, want to get a better idea of what's going on, compared to just, what you see in the headlines and things like that, right? Um, it's very easy to see a headline that says foreclosures jump 13%, right? And it's then the question is that most people won't ask is, well, 13% from where? If
Yeah.
it was at zero, you know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
very, very small number.
Yep. Well, and I
Same thing with
think,
price drops. Prices have dropped 25%, stuff like that.
yeah, totally. And I was just going to touch on that too. Like that's been a challenge for us is, everyone gets their news from somewhere, whether
Yep.
that's a credible source or it's their brother's uncle's sister. You know what I mean? Like it's and that's the problem is like we're trying to crack into this and just share like the data that we're actually seeing, and a lot of times there's some misconceptions around those. So same thing when it talks about demand or what we can expect this year, why buyers should wait. Well, that might not necessarily be the case. It's case by case, right? It depends on what their situation is, what they can afford, where it is they're trying to move to, because other areas are doing better than others.
Yep, exactly, exactly. So, we're looking at that, and this is obviously right. It's our expert advice from what we see, what we know, what we're dealing with every day. But it's still an opinion because it's going to change from agent to agent depending on which direction they're looking at, what the goal is, or things like that. So I know a big thing for me, I just try to give you guys the honest perspective, whether I like it or not. What's going on is what's going on, because we want buyers and sellers to be in the best possible situation at the end of the day. So kind of with that, we'll start with the market, right? Holistically, I feel like we're kind of in this transitional period, and Jacob, I'm sure you're seeing it too, where we're really moving from an environment that personally I would have considered a buyer's environment. It was high rate. I'm not discounting that whatsoever. However, with that high rate was the opportunity for negotiating and making things happen. You know what I mean? So being able to go look at a home and essentially low inventory, even fewer buyers, put the market in a scenario where things came to a crawling halt, right? So having that ability to say, okay, I want to buy your home. Your home's been on the market for 70 plus days. Let's talk about how we can make this happen. And part of that, what you guys would see in the headline is, oh, prices are holding steady, they're not dropping, things like that, right? So for me, it was like, well, we got to take that with a grain of salt because what the consumer doesn't see on the back end is the amount of something that the seller gave up to the buyer to get to the closing table,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so for us, that was concessions.
What?
So when you look at oh, you got a delay.
Yeah, hold on, it's telling me something weird. Okay. No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So with concessions, right? So what I'm able to see on the back end is that a house sold for asking price, but the seller gave the buyer $20,000 in concessions.
Yep.
So
And
essentially, the
and
seller gave the
concessions
buyer.
can be a variety of things, whether that helps with upgrade costs, covering costs at the closing table. There's a lot of things that seller concessions allow the buyer to use that for.
Yep.
Um, and it does put the buyer in a good position where they can negotiate price, but they can also get a lot of help from the seller, to put that price, put whatever it is, a few $1,000s, 50 grand, whatever it is,
Right.
towards something to help the buyer.
Right. So the best way to put this, and these are realistic situations, right? Whatever the cost of the buy down was, if you apply that $20,000 to the buy down and rates are at 8%, you now went from an 8% interest rate to the closing table, you're at 6% interest rate, which made a difference and made, people more comfortable, right? So, that's why I say it was kind of to me, a buyer's period. The issue is the buyers weren't coming out to take advantage of that,
Yeah.
right? No competition.
Well,
And I know, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say too, another one that I don't think a lot of buyers understood was what a buy down was and how the seller can account for that too. And they basically what a buy down is let's say it's a 2-1 buy down. when interest rates are high at like 8%, like they were this fall, if you were to get a 2-1 buy down, that basically means the first 2 years you get a discount on that interest rate and the seller covers that difference. So if it was 8%, the first year it would be 6% interest rate. Seller would cover that. Second year would be 7%. So you're not really paying that 8% interest rate on your mortgage until the third year. And that's just another way sellers help the buyers in a market
Right.
like this where it's slower and they're trying to get that house sold.
Right, exactly. And that didn't even just go for like the resale properties we have. The other telltale, which a consumer really would not have known unless they were working with the agent or they checked themselves, is the builders. When you start seeing the builders give stuff away, they were offering a 30-year fixed interest rate in the fives, right? Well, here you are with millions of people saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait for the interest rate to drop. I'm going to wait for the interest rate to drop." Well, a simple phone call to an agent that was familiar would have told you, "Oh, well, let's go look at new builds because the rate you're waiting for us to drop to, they are currently giving you."
Do
You
you
know what I
think do
mean?
you
So
think buyers or builders do that more towards the end of the year than other times of the year because they're trying to get rid of inventory?
it just depends on the market, right? So in 2021, they had no problem selling properties. Everyone was on a wait list. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
they weren't giving away anything. As soon as we kind of hit the higher rates, we start to see free basements. Then we started to see what they call move-in ready packages, all appliances, oh, all appliances, meat, blinds, stuff like that. And then it got to the point where they started paying for the buy downs,
Yeah.
right? And now, as we transition and we're heading towards spring, what I'm already seeing from the builders is we're seeing price increases. We're seeing that buy down promotion decrease. We're not seeing the full appliance packages, right? So to me, that's a telltale of where we're going. And that's
Yeah.
really why I say right now, we're in this transitional window as everyone starts to prepare for spring. We've already gotten some indications of rates dropping, things like that. So
Yeah.
holistically, I feel like that's where the market is. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, if I'm a buyer, my advice to the buyer is the sooner the better. If you're going to sell your home, my advice to a seller is March 1st, be ready to go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, in spring and summertime is always when the market ramps up, regardless. But with the
Yep.
projections of where the rates are heading, it's gonna make it crazy. So whether you're gonna buy now or wait, I would at least get all your ducks in a row and get pre-approved and start figuring out the areas, do your market research of the local areas you would like to look at. So that way when inventory does start to increase, you know exactly what it is that you want, but that you can also afford, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. And always affordability and always remember supply and demand. It's
Yeah.
like it's like we all know that, but when it comes to certain items, we forget about supply and demand and we're more focused on the interest rate or you know what I mean, something like that. Supply and
Yeah.
demand is the name of the game. So that's
Yeah.
that's where the holistic market update is at, especially here in the Denver metro area. You know,
Yeah.
Parker, Highlands Ranch, Centennial, Aurora.
Well, and it's only gonna explode from here. I was looking at have you ever looked at the Castle Rock 2030 plan that they have?
I have not for Castle Rock. No.
So I was looking at theirs yesterday and dude, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, and I'm sure other areas in the Denver area are the same way. But I mean, by 2030, they're building, with the thought in mind that it'll eventually get to 90,000 people in population by
Yep,
2030,
I can see
and
that.
then a build out population to sustain 130 to 150,000. And essentially, a build out is planning your entire town with retail and all of these shops, parks, trails,
Yep.
recreation, um, to sustain up to 130,000 people. So that's their goal by um,
Yep.
2030. And I don't know, like, what's the population there now? Like almost 70,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
And
67
actually,
something.
before we jump into the development to an infrastructure project, we got a good amount of people on Instagram. So first, I want to say hi, thank you for jumping in. Um, Obviously, you see my tag, Jacob. want to let them know what your tag is on Instagram, your
Yeah.
website, how they may be able to get a hold of you, all that fun stuff. Because a lot of this information too,
You
one,
can
you can reach
find.
out to us directly, or you can find like on our
Yeah.
websites, on our social media, on our Facebook also. So you want to go ahead and give out your tags and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. So Instagram tag is Jacob_Brummel. I don't know if you guys can see it on there. Um, that and then website is going to be jacobbrummelproperties.com. And there you can find a lot of helpful resources as well. One that I've been finding a lot of great success with that people are loving is the neighborhood news. So you go on there, and essentially what that is you put in your name, your email, and your zip code. And what it does is every month it sends you some hold on, what just happened here? Oh, there we go. It sends you a um personalized market report for your pocket, your neighborhood, your neck of the woods. So that way you can get a more specialized market report that's not as
Yep.
vague. So I recommend
Nice.
going on there. There's a lot of helpful resources, and obviously you can reach out to John and myself, and we're happy to help.
Yeah. And the easiest way to find me, if you just Google John Nichols II real estate, it should populate basically all my sources: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, website. My personal website is buyandsallecoloradohomes.com. Here on Instagram, john.nichols.ii.realestate. And then on Facebook, just John Nichols II. So try to make it easy as the rivals up in Boulder say I'm not hard to find. Um, but yeah, so jumping into the development, so you kind of touched on that with Castle Rock, and a couple of things going on closer to the airport. For anyone who's been out to DIA lately, have seen the construction. So there's huge infrastructure projects and development projects going on right now out by DIA, which that area is going to be basically Denver and Aurora sharing. They got weird lines and things going on over there. But I could tell you, for example, the Painted Perry subdivision has shopping centers coming. The Aurora Highlands, which is still in their very early stages, are still building out a ton of homes. I mean, they're forecasting that to be a miniature city at this point. They have their commercial going up, so they're going to have the movie theaters, the shopping centers, the grocery stores. And just from doing research, what I can see is out in that area, a majority of the land has already been purchased. So the fact that it's been recently purchased, there's already subdivision plans being approved and starting to break ground. The growth is going to be tremendous out in that area around Denver Airport. And anyone that's into investing, understanding that real estate, at the end of the day, it is an investment. Yes, you're buying a home. Yes, you're buying comfort and consistency, but it's also an investment. Out there, if that's something you're willing to look at, it's in its very early stages. Basically, as Jacob touched on, sounds like Castle Rock is in its super early stages as far as exploding as well. Um, in the Centennial Aurora area around Southlands, there's still growth going on there. So there's a lot of growth and development really going on right now in Denver and Denver Metro. And we're just seeing a ton of people continue to move in this direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons, and another one too. John, I don't know. Have you heard about the Rodeo Dunes development that they're doing out by Denver
No.
Airport?
Mm-mm.
So they're building abandoned dunes in Oregon, those golf courses.
Okay. So that's
So
yes,
they're
that's
they're
in
building
Circuit.
six. Yes. No,
Yeah.
it's like I don't think so. It's like
I thought it was
20.
closer to okay. I know
I
what you're
think,
talking about, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's like I think
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's gonna be like 30 miles or so from DIA, like northeast, I
Okay.
think. But
Okay.
I mean, this once that's put in place, those six um, prestigious resort golf courses, that's gonna explode the
Yep.
economy out east by the airport. And I can only imagine, I haven't seen any housing development plans for that area by the courses yet,
Yep.
but I'm certain that they're gonna start building some out there, as well as some
Yep.
other retail. So if people have the opportunity to get some of those homes now, I mean, they might be looking at it and be like, gosh, that's so far out there. It's so far from everything
Well, today, right?
today. Like 10
Today. And
years from now, it's going to be a hot spot. No
so
question.
I grew up in California, grew up in Los Angeles. So it's funny when like people like, oh, that's far out, where I'm like, well, in reality, 470 on either side is no more than what, 10 miles, 15 miles from the city center.
Yeah.
So that's really not a lot when you look at something like Dallas or
Yeah.
Atlanta or LA. Like, so being out east isn't that big. They call it Kansas today. Tomorrow is going to be Denver. You know
Yep.
what I
It
mean?
it truly is.
Uh,
And it's not, you don't even have to deal with the traffic like you do in some of the other big cities like
yep,
Phoenix,
yep,
LA, Chicago. So it's not that bad. It's all perspective.
yep. So then the development too, obviously we know, I think at this point it's confirmed that Elages is moving. Ball Arena is redoing that area,
Oh, good.
housing,
I
shopping.
didn't, I wasn't a fan of
Um,
Elitch's over there. I'm glad they're
so
getting rid of it.
so they're working on developing that area
Are they
to
moving
kind of
Elitch's?
they are moving Elages. I don't think they've nailed down where they're going yet, but from a geographical perspective, there's only one place to go, and that's out east.
Yeah.
Like that's where it's flat, that's where the land is. And
Yeah.
let's face it, the Six Flags here, if you've been to Six Flags in other states, like this one, my personal opinion, don't beat me up, was more like a carnival
Yeah.
compared to like Six Flags Magic Mountain in California or in San
Yeah.
Antonio. You know what I mean? So I think that hopefully that's the direction that they move in. If they go out east, they'll be able to get the land and truly build the amusement park that Colorado needs. So
Yeah. Well, and they even talked when the Broncos, got their new owners and they were talking about potentially doing a new stadium, which they might still one day, but they talked about one of the sites being out east. And it just goes to show like they might not be doing that, but there's going to be a lot of action out east, whether
so
that's something like that or something else.
so here's my thoughts on that, right? So something, don't hold my feet to the fire on this, guys, but something like 80%, 85% of NFL teams are not in the city they're named after, right? So Phoenix Cardinals are actually in
They're in Glendale.
Glendale, right? LA Chargers are technically in Inglewood, even though it's LA County, right?
Well, and the Niners
Um,
are in what, Santa Clara?
Santa Clara, the Dallas Cowboys are in Fort Worth,
Yeah.
right? So it's not unheard of. And the newer stadiums, what the owners want is they want the stadium and they also want to own the residential and the entertainment districts
That's
around the stadium,
And that's the thing
right?
is the new entertainment districts. Every
Yep,
single place is doing that. So if they were to ever relocate out east, that's a perfect place to build as
right,
big of a entertainment district as you want.
right. So last I heard, they have about 6 or 7 years left on their contract or something with Denver. I would imagine it takes 3 to 4 years to actually build a stadium. So I feel like over the next 2.5 years, we should have a pretty good idea of if the Denver Broncos will stay in Denver, or as some jokingly about, will the Denver Broncos be the Aurora Broncos?
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Time will
so yeah,
tell.
so yeah, right. So yeah,
But
there's a
yeah,
good
that
amount
just
going on.
yeah, it just goes to show there's a lot that's going on and the east side is going to be crazy because that's where the room is for more development too. There's only so much you can do on the
Right.
current Front Range by the mountains. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And our weather's not as cold as people think. Or
no,
should I
but
say the snow doesn't
it gets
the snow
cold.
doesn't stick around. We got negatives this week, but the snow doesn't stick around
Yeah,
as
that's
long
true. And we get
as one
the
would
we
think.
get the
So
sun. What do they say? You get 300 plus days of sunshine in
well,
Colorado.
you know how they count that, right? It's like if the
Yeah,
sun
don't they
pops
just
out
have
for like
someone like sit outside every day and then they track?
well well if it's like I think it's like 2 hours. If you get sunshine for 2 hours, it's considered a sunny day here or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
so so yeah, so that's really like development and infrastructure. Obviously there's a lot going on across the board. I know and understand, for a lot of people prices are crazy, but it also comes down to strategy when you're looking at pricing, where you want to purchase. I mean, there's still, and once again, it depends on where you want to live. I mean, price points are as low as 400, 450,000 in some areas. And then obviously we're getting up to 5, 6, 7 million plus, Cherry Hills
Yeah.
type of districts. So it's all over the board. It's just nailing down what you want, where you want to be, what benefits and such you want to take advantage of. So
Yeah.
um
One thing I've been telling people lately because they're so stuck on, the look of the house and what I keep telling people is I'm like, hey, like lock down like the land piece. Figure out where you want to be and then lock that down. Find a house over there, get it. because you can always renovate and make the house look a
Yeah.
certain way. You know what I mean? You can redo the
Yeah.
kitchen, all these things, but you can't relocate that house. So
You can't pick it up and move.
land is key. Find the land, and then you can always make the house the way you want it down the road.
Which we've seen a lot in, Denver, 5 Points, just outside of downtown,
Yeah.
right? It got to the point where people were buying those homes, some were dilapidated, and now you go there and there's like these multi-million-dollar mansions on these lots where these little two-bedroom houses used
Yeah.
to sit,
The flips are crazy. You go by Wash Park and I swear all those houses are flipped.
Ross Park, Salone Lake. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
it's
So,
nuts. But
so,
yeah, okay,
um,
well, go in a little bit, John, about I guess HOAs. What do HOAs look like these days?
so I'm a fan of HOAs personally, which I know isn't the popular answer, right? But here's why I'm a fan of HOA. One, I think Colorado in general is doing a better job of trying to manage and control HOAs and put more parameters around them as far as their accountability and their power. And Colorado's a lot is usually the first to the table for a lot of things, kind of like that. So we're removing this aspect that HOAs can, you know, put a lien on someone's property for something that's cutting the grass or something like that, right? So we're starting to see more control around that. But the true reason why I'm a fan of HOA is just because like they truly are working to uphold the property value in that given area, right? So when it comes to HOA and what they charge and things like that, and talking to clients, my thing is like, what do you get for it, right? And I'm honest with my clients a lot of the times when they're buying, like, hey, this HOA is $250 a month. I personally don't see the value in this. So I'm just going to tell you up front, like, there's no swimming pool, there's no clubhouse.
Yeah.
There doesn't
If you
the
can't really see where
exterior.
the HOA money's going,
Exactly, right,
it's yeah.
right.
And we're
If
not
you're
afraid
paying
to share that either. Of like, hey, this
right,
this doesn't make sense. I would look into it a little further.
right, at $250 a month, like the exterior should be immaculate with the amount of money. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's that part of it. Yes, some of them get out of control, but then you get in a community, some of the subdivisions out in our areas where it's $30 a month, $60 a month, and you got a swimming pool or two, maybe a fitness room, a clubhouse you can rent out. There's a handful of parks that are being maintained, things like that, right? As well as holding us and our neighbors accountable. If somebody's house needs to be repainted, like they're gonna get the letter, they have to repaint. Let's face it, you don't want
Yeah.
if you decide to sell your home, you don't want the home across the street falling apart.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So
and if you go to older neighborhoods in Colorado, that's when you'll start to see the blue homes, the yellow homes, the pink homes, because there's no HOAs, and that's also where like building codes come into place. Is like it's to help create like a unified look to help sustain that property value, not just for your house, but the one next to you. Because I don't know if a lot of people realize the impact that their neighbor's home can have on their value if they're trying to sell. So HOAs and building codes and those types of ordinances really do
love
help.
hate.
People don't even understand that, but it's like if you had a house next to you and it was all run down, no one ever took care of the yard, and it was, blue and gutters were hanging off, there's no HOA to stop them. They can do what they
Yep.
want. But if someone's looking to buy your house, why would they want to move right next to someone like that? They might.
Right.
But that's something I feel like a lot of people don't understand,
Yep.
like with HOAs. And
Yep.
yeah, so you're not going to see that. And I actually saw this stat where it's 46% or 47, I guess, percent of Colorado residents are subject to an HOA, while 53 don't have an HOA. And that's going to be a lot of in those older neighborhoods that you'll find. A lot of the new developments typically have an HOA to keep that unified look.
Yep. And I think the new what's the word I'm looking for? The new Darth Vader, the new villain is the Metro District. So I'd be interested to see kind of how that goes, which direction that moves in. So technically it's an HOA, but now they have a different term, whether it be a cab or something like that. So these newer divisions subdivisions are going up. Yes, we're seeing higher taxes, and it's because they have to build out the infrastructure. But what we're being told is, the higher taxes are temporary once the infrastructure and the projects are done. then it should level out. The challenge with that is some of these projects, Aurora Highland is a 30-year project from start to finish, right? So,
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
and imagine being the first buyer in that subdivision. When they finish, your home is paid for, and now all the houses are at their peak for value. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
that part comes with it too. But
yeah,
so yeah, we'll see what happens with metro districts and things like that as we move forward. Things to look for.
yeah. I agree. What you want to talk about
Um,
next?
so I got other big topic that we hear a lot about inventory. So what we want to touch on a little bit is like inventory rolled into like the amount of time homes are on the market, and it kind of rolls into the market conditions. So we're kind of keeping that trend
Yeah,
where
and real quick, in case no one knows what inventory is, it would basically be if no new homes were brought into the market, how long would it take for the current supply of homes to be sold?
yep,
That's what
yep,
that means.
yep. And pre-COVID, typically we would want somewhere between like 4 and 7 months of inventory,
That would be like
right?
considered, yeah, balanced market.
Normal, right?
Yes. Yeah. Anything
Uh,
less than that would be seller's market considered, and then beyond that would be a buyer's market.
Correct. So there, I'm gonna say this: there's no normal. Like we might as well forget it. Like the new normal is being developed every day, every month in this industry. Um, and the analogy I like to use is we all know when you buy Skittles that it's the rainbow, right? So there's
Yeah,
every
you know what you're
color in a
getting.
bag of Skittles.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting. All it takes is for one person, one time to open a bag of Skittles and they're all red, right? So then what are they going to expect the next time they open a bag of Skittles? They're going to be looking for
All
all
reds.
red,
Yeah.
right? So I kind of use that to say that COVID era for interest rates, right? How crazy it got was the red bag of Skittles. You know what I mean? So the 2008 crash and the way things crashed was the red bag of Skittles, right? And I say that to say we have buyers waiting for those interest rates again. We have buyers waiting for that market crash again. Well, the two of those things will never happen and they're not going to happen together. I can
Yeah.
guarantee you that.
Well, and
So,
and that was it truly was unheard of because like the 20-year average is around 6, 7%, which
correct.
is literally where we're at right now. But the problem is people are comparing it to what we saw post COVID, and that was like you said, it's unheard of, and it's not going to get to that point again. And honestly, I feel like it's a good thing that it's not because if it does, it's back to those bidding wars where like you're getting 10, 12 offers on a home and then the highest cash offer is going to win. It's so hard to buy in that market and
Yep.
I don't think people realize that they don't want to go back down that road.
Exactly, exactly. So that's what we're looking at. So inventory holistically right now, even in this slower market, which fall and winter is across the board, we only have 2 months of inventory. So why is that important? Well, if I'm a buyer and I've been waiting, I didn't do anything in fall because the rates were too high. I didn't do anything in winter because the rates were just coming down. I'm going to wait till spring. How many buyers have that same thought process with 2 months of inventory left? So basically, as a buyer, hypothetically, let's say you wake up Monday morning and the rates are at 5%. You haven't spoken to a real estate agent, you haven't got your pre-qualified letter, you don't know what your affordability mark is, you're behind the curve. By the time you get those things in line at 5% with the amount of inventory we have, there's not going to be any houses for you
No,
to look at the following week,
there
right?
won't. I just had a buyer a couple weeks ago hit me up and he was like, "Hey, when rates hit 5%, like let's get a home." And I was like, okay, like we can do that. But how many other people do you think are saying the same thing?
Right.
You're not gonna have as much freedom and weight in your buying process at 5% as you do now because thousands of other buyers are thinking the same exact thing.
Right. So one way to beat that, we're still kind of behind the ball because you could have done this back in early fall. one way to beat that. Right now, the rates, I think last I checked, was like 6.7%. I don't know if you have it in front of you,
Yeah.
but right. So we go find you a home. The rates are 6.7%. We're the only offer. This house has been on the market for 90 plus days. We're going to submit that offer asking for a concession in the amount to get you, say, a 2% permanent buy down. So with a permanent buy down, you don't have to worry about refinancing. So a 2% drop from 6.7 would be what? 5.7, 4.7. Your interest rate is now at 4.7, paid for by the seller, right? So I think that's what gets overlooked. So when it comes to inventory, the amount of homes on the market currently, like, yes, there's fewer buyers, so it looks like you have options, but the minute the rates get to a spot where the general public is satisfied, everyone comes running back, that amount of inventory is gone. Home prices are going to increase, and we very likely could end up in a scenario we were before, because we're not going to have the amount of homes we pre-COVID had come into the market on a regular basis, simply because something like 90% of people, homeowners, refinanced in that 2020, 2021, 2022 window. And they're sitting at, I mean, there's a potential of a property, I may have where there's an assumable loan at 2.5%, right? And the only
Yeah.
reason this person is selling is because they got a promotion and, they're living in a different state and they need to get rid of the house, right? Um, so the average consumer likely is not going to sell unless something is forcing them to sell. And they're going to try to hold on to this home. So even the person that has the loan of 2.5% that we're looking at possibly selling soon, um, he tried to hold on to it for as long as he can, and then finally he's like, look, I got to buy something where I'm at, so I got to get rid of it. So that's the other thing. If you want to interest rate in the sort of 2.5s or something like that, look for an assumable loan. Um, those are fun.
You want to dive into those
FHA.
real quick? Just touch on an
Yeah, so
assumable loan.
basically what an assumable loan is, if you're a buyer and you qualify, the current home loan, so the remaining balance and the interest rate, so in this case it's 2.5, can be transferred to the new buyer, right? Now the catch is it's the remaining balance. So if they lived in this home, say for 15 years, you would have to come up with a cash or a second loan or something like that to cover the other portion of that balance, right? In my particular scenario, the assumable loan is going to cover it's something like 85 to 90% of what you're going to pay for the home. So it's a really good deal, for the right buyer. So that's an opportunity where you're yes, you'll be able to get a 2.5%. But outside of that, like like good luck. So and again, it plays into inventory. This
Sure.
house comes to the market. I'm forecasting that it's going to be gone immediately, especially if someone qualifies for that assumable loan rate at 2.5.
Yeah.
So we're going to see homes come and go a lot faster as we approach spring.
Yeah. Yep.
So days on market, we've seen that increase over the past couple of months. It's already starting to go down. Homes at the right price point with the right finishes and the right location are already receiving multiple offers. Right. And when I say multiple, I mean between the 5 and 10 number at this point in this
Mhm.
current environment. So we're we're
Yeah.
we're
Well,
slowly
they
transitioning.
just said in the office yesterday, what was it? The one agent had six offers on a home.
Yep.
Her and her buyer put one in, and they missed out because there were five additional offers, three of which I think were cash offers.
Yep.
Um,
And then a cash offer well over asking.
yeah, and they
Yep.
even offered above asking. Her buyer
Yep.
did. And so it just goes to show like we are probably in the slowest time of the year and we're still getting those kinds of offers, which is just if that's any tell of what's to come, um, I would say act sooner rather than later.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. So I mean that's the gist of it. Looks like we do have a handful on Instagram. So I didn't see any questions come across. I don't know if you've seen, but if you're on
Nope.
Instagram and you have a question, you can go ahead, throw it out there and we can see, maybe what we can do to get it answered. But I think Unless you got something else to cover, I don't think there's really too much
No,
more.
I feel like
That's
we
just
we touched on quite a bit.
yep.
Dude, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Like you said, we really just want to get information out there to people.
Yeah.
Um, it's not about forcing people to buy or sell. That's not the name of the game. That's not the direction we
No.
move in. It's really about education, providing the education so you can make the best decision for you and
Hmm.
your family. All we can do is just give the information we have access to,
Well,
right?
and yeah, and that's what I'm finding too, is a lot of people are like, I feel like they almost think we're out to like try and convince them of something. We're not. Our job is to like be an advocate, right? And we dove into this business because there's so much success families can have from owning real estate. And so it's just that's all our job is, to advocate and to advise, but we don't make the decisions, and we're not here to tell you to buy or sell. We don't know what the right thing to do is for you guys. It's just we're here to help you guide and figure out what that plan might be, but ultimately you call the shots,
Right.
as
And
we
every
like to say.
situation is different. I will say this. So I'm a big component, obviously, playing football and sports and things like that, like having the right team around you. And I think both buyers and sellers get lost and lose out, I should say, on benefits and value when they don't do the work. And you have to do some work as a buyer or seller to find the right team. I think often we go for the easiest option, and the easiest option may not be the best option. And what I mean by that is a realtor that supports your needs, their goals match, what you're trying to do, your expectations and their expectations aligned. If they say their full service thought aligns with what you think is full service, right? That real estate agent also needs a lender that's going to go to bat for you, right? They need an inspector that's going to go to bat for you. Like everybody in that collective on that team, in my opinion, have to be on the same page to create the smoothest transaction, to make the process as easy as possible for you, and to ensure that across the board you're making the right decision. And I say that to say, I had a house on the market. We went under contract for the second time, and I'm just like communicating with the agent. I'm like, something's a little off here. Like the agent's communication with their buyer, to me, it just wasn't the right fit. Um, about 2.5 weeks into the process, I call up the agent. I'm like, hey, you guys haven't done the appraisal yet. Where are we with this process? Right. And the response was, oh, the lender is waiting for some approval, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, to give you guys an idea, for me, with my buyers, in a matter of about a week, I know if my buyers qualify for a home. Actually, before they even start looking, I know that they qualify for what we're looking for, and there's not going to be any major hurdles. So in this scenario, there were some major hurdles that I feel like the agent or the lender didn't dig into before they started taking this buyer out to look, right? So long story short, not having the right team put this buyer in a situation where they could have lost their earnest money if my seller really wanted to stick to the guns about it. And we're talking about $7,000, right? Um, Basically, the deal fell through because the buyer couldn't qualify. Buyer couldn't qualify because there were these underlying issues that weren't dove into or completely understood prior to them starting their process, right? So just make sure you have the right team. Make sure you have a group around you that's in it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And not every agent in their team is going to be the right fit for you, too. So it's different
Yep.
for everyone. And that's, like he said, it's big to know that you not only are partnering with an agent that has your best interest in mind, but that agent also has a good marketing team, lender, inspector, all of those pieces that are needed to make a transaction successful and smooth. So, yeah, just something to look for when you begin your search.
Yes, for sure.
Cool. Well, any last thoughts or concerns before I let you go?
That's it. Just, want to thank everybody for jumping on. Feel free to follow us. You guys want more information, reach out. Don't wait. There's no silly questions. We're gonna do what we can to answer all the questions. Like I said, I'm pretty easy to find. If you just Google John Nichols II, it'll take you to where you want to go and whatever your preferred method of contact is.
Yes, sir. Cool, John. Appreciate
All
you.
right.
I will talk
All
to you
right.
soon.
Well, all right. With that, go Rams. Have a great one.
See ya.